The Watery Abyss, the legend of the Nuckelavee. The Orkney Islands are not for the faint-hearted. Storms batter the shores with relentless fury, and the air smells of salt, damp earth, and secrets. The sea, ever restless, is as much a giver of life as it is a harbinger of death. It's said that the ocean itself holds memories of those it has claimed. Among the ancient tales shared in hushed whispers by fireside, none is more feared than that of the Nuckelavee. The villagers described it in pieces, as though to speak of it in full was to summon it. A monster of the sea, they would mutter. A horse with no skin, its rider fused, like a plague come alive, eyes glowing, mouths dripping of foul, black bile that poisons the very air. But it was not just its appearance that terrified, it was its rage. The Nuckelavee is said to punish those who disrespect the balance of land and sea. Ewan didn't believe in such things. Young and brash, he was a fisherman with a stubborn streak. When a violent storm destroyed his nets and left him empty-handed, he defied his village's warnings. The sea takes, he said, but it gives back to those with the guts to demand it. Ignoring the wary glances and murmurs of his neighbors, he set out alone. The evening was unervingly still, the ocean as flat and reflective as a sheet of black glass. The air was heavy, thick with a salty dampness that clung to Ewan's skin. He rode for hours under a moon that seemed too bright and too large, casting the waves in a pale, eerie glow. As he cast his nets, the water around him began to ripple, not from the tide, but as if something massive stirred below. It began as a shadow, a black smudge beneath the surface that swelled and stretched until it seemed to envelop the world around him. Suddenly, the water exploded. Ewan recoiled as the Nuckelavee emerged, its grotesque body illuminated by the ghostly moonlight. The horse-like beast glistened wetly, its exposed muscles pulsing as if alive. Its rider, fused grotesquely to the horse's back, stared down at Ewan with hollow, glowing eyes. The smell of decay filled the air, thick and suffocating. Ewan's boat rocked violently as the creature approached. Its long, sinewy arms reached toward him, and he could hear its breath, a rasping, wet sound like water sloshing in a hollow skull. Heart pounding, he grabbed his oars and rowed with all his strength, the sound of splashing water mixing with the creature's guttural growls. The shore was still distant when the Nuckelavie's rider extended an impossibly long arm, its claws grazing Ewan's back. The touch burned like fire, searing through his shirt. Desperate, he remembered the village tales. The Nuckelavee could not cross fresh water. He turned the boat sharply, aiming for the narrow stream that fed into the sea. As he leaped from his boat into the stream's frigid waters, the creature let out a piercing scream, a sound so inhuman it made his ears ring. Ewan turned to see the beast pacing at the water's edge, its eyes blazing with fury. Then, with a final guttural roar, it vanished into the mist, leaving only a foul stench and the sound of waves lapping against the shore. Ewan returned to the village, but he was never the same. The burn on his back festered, and he avoided the sea for the rest of his days. On stormy nights, villagers claimed to hear the Nuckelavee scream echoing over the waves, a reminder that the sea must be respected or else. The Bottomless Pit, the curse of Aokigahara's waterfall. Aokigahara, the sea of trees, is a place where silence reigns. The forest, dense and sprawling, swallows sound. No birds sing here, and the rustling of leaves is muted, as though the very air is burdened with sorrow. Travelers speak of a strange heaviness in their chests when they enter, as though the forest knows their secrets and weighs them down with guilt. It was into this oppressive silence that Hiroshi, a wandering monk, ventured. He sought isolation, believing the stillness of Aokigahara would aid his meditation. For days, he walked the forest's shadowy paths, his footsteps crunching on the thick carpet of fallen leaves. Food was scarce, but streams provided enough water to sustain him until he found Kurosaki Falls. The waterfall appeared suddenly, as if summoned by his thirst. Crystal-clear water cascaded over dark rocks, pooling at the base in a perfectly circular basin. Hiroshi approached, kneeling at the edge to drink. The water was ice cold, the taste strangely sweet. But as he drank, a chill ran down his spine. The air around him grew colder, and the ever-present silence was replaced by whispers. At first, they were faint, indistinct murmurs. But soon, the whispers grew louder, clearer. They spoke his name over and over, in voices he recognized. Hiroshi turned, but no one was there. As he looked back at the water, his reflection began to change. Faces appeared, dozens of them, floating just beneath the surface. He recognized them. The monk he had wronged, the beggar he had ignored, the thief he had condemned. The water rippled violently, and the faces twisted into expressions of rage. Pale hands erupted from the pool, skeletal and clawed, grabbing at his robes. Hiroshi screamed, stumbling back, but the ground beneath him turned soft and slippery, pulling him closer to the edge. The whispers became screams, each voice accusing him of his sins. The hands dragged him into the water, and the last thing he saw was the dark, endless void beneath the surface. When villagers found the waterfall days later, all they recovered were Hiroshi's robes, neatly folded by the edge. To this day, locals avoid Kurosaki Falls, saying it preys on guilt. Those who approach often claim to see their own faces in the water, distorted, twisted, and angry. And sometimes, late at night, the whispers rise again, calling out the names of the lost. The hungry earth, the tale of the Tiyanak. The Philippine jungle is alive at night. The air is humid and heavy, buzzing with the calls of insects and the distant howls of animals. But on certain nights, when the moon is hidden behind clouds, the jungle grows silent. That is when the Tiyanak hunts. Joaquin, a traveling merchant, was no stranger to the jungle. He prided himself on his fearlessness, mocking the superstitions of the villagers he passed. One evening, as he made camp beneath a towering tree, he heard it, a soft, pitiful cry. A baby's cry, faint and distant, but unmistakable. At first, he ignored it, but the crying grew louder, more insistent, tugging at his conscience. Finally, lantern in hand, he followed the sound. It led him through dense undergrowth to a small clearing bathed in pale moonlight. There on the ground lay a swaddled infant, its tiny fist trembling as it wailed. Joaquin knelt, his heart aching. But as he reached for the child, its cries stopped. The jungle fell silent. Slowly, the baby turned its head to look at him. Its eyes gleamed red, and its mouth twisted into a grotesque grin. Before Joaquin could react, the cloth fell away, revealing a creature with leathery skin, sharp claws, and jagged teeth. It let out a deep, guttural laugh, a sound that sent chills down Joaquin's spine. The Tiyanak leapt onto him, its claws sinking into his shoulders. He stumbled back, screaming, but the creature's grip was impossibly strong. It whispered into his ear, its voice a raspy hiss. "I know you, Joaquin. I know what you've done." Memories flooded his mind, his betrayal of his wife, the debts he'd run from, the lies he'd told. The Tiyanak seemed to grow heavier with each sin it uncovered, dragging him to his knees. Desperate, Joaquin began to pray, his trembling voice barely audible. The Tiyanak screeched, its claws loosening. With one last piercing cry, it vanished into the shadows, leaving Joaquin trembling and alone. He returned to the village, but the encounter left him broken. Even now, the jungle sometimes carries the faint sound of a baby crying, and those who followed are never seen again,